Hello and welcome to this edition of Side Retired, the MLB podcast. It is Dylan joined alongside James and Jack in this YouTube exclusive episode of Side Retired. So you can see a lot of other faces or names on the screen as well, because what we're going to be talking about today is breaking down a mock off season, where in general, what we did is each one of the guys on the screen right now took a hold of a baseball team and became their GM for the off season. So they're going to have to be with us for the next 20 minutes or so, explaining what the moves they made this off season and why did they do it. So in general, what we're going to do now, if I can do this correctly, we're going to share screen because this is a YouTube, and what you're going to be able to do is to see what happened during this MLB offseason. Joining us today, we have a couple guys with us. Jonas, who's been on the podcast before, he took over for the White Sox. Jack obviously took over for the Yankees. We have Nick Labat, who came on almost a year ago for last year's mock off season. He took over the Toronto Blue Jays. You have Kern taking over his favorite Dodgers. You have Joe Bannon, who's not with us on the call today, but is a side retired writer, so he might write an article about it for the Seattle Mariners. And then you have James, of course, writing with his Houston Astros, and David doing his LA Angels. We're going to start with James since you're a co-host, so you're going to know what you're doing with this sort of thing. Take us through what you did this off season. Take us through anything in particular. I know you made some blockbusters at the end, so go for it.
Yeah, so originally I wanted to base my offseason around Carlos Correa, hoping that the Astros would get him back, and then I could clear up cap space in other places to make moves. Unfortunately, the Astros did not sign Carlos Correa, so that kind of handicapped me spending wise. That's why I had to end up trading away Jose Altuve and free up about 28-30 million in cap space on top of the 10 million that I had to begin the offseason. I made a few other small moves in order to clear space, such as trading away Lance McCullers, trading away Jacob DeRizzi. That cleared around 28 million for me as well. So then I started my offseason. I wanted to really solidify the outfield defensively and add some speed to my team. So I signed
Starling Marte.
Starling Marte, yeah. I was looking at Ketel Marte, and I was like, that's not who I signed. Starling Marte. And then kind of kept quiet with the free agent market after that. Didn't really add any pitching. Kind of added a lot. I added a lot of depth pieces. I really prioritized depth. But other than that, didn't really look to make any other signings. I did end up trading for a couple of guys, trading a lot of my top prospects away, getting pieces. And then I really kind of sat for most of the offseason until the last day, waiting to see if Correa would end up coming to the Astros to really solidify my team. He did not. So that's when I kind of started moving all the young pieces that I got in return. I was able to acquire Xander Bogaerts, Ketel Marte, and Madison Bumgarner at the end of the mock off season. Oh, and along with Eduardo Rodriguez. So yeah, I got Sandy Alcantara early on, Wilson Contreras. So I really wanted to get some young elements into my pitching staff, along with eating some money from teams in order to get the stars like Marte and Bogaerts later on in the offseason. So yeah, I think my team is the best because my 1 through 5 starters are all great pieces, and I have a true ace in Sandy Alcantara heading my rotation. My bullpen is deep. I have a lot of depth in the pen. Strong arms like Mark Melancon, Ryan Presley, Shane Green, Pedro Baez, Phil Maton. And then position player wise, I think I have the best lineup, definitely the best infield and outfield out of all the teams this mock off season. So yeah, I think my team's strong and has a lot of depth. And I'm happy with all the moves I was able to make this off season.
Sounds good. And thank you for going first, sort of setting the tone what the other guys are going to do with their mock off season. We'll go to Nick, who as of 2 weeks ago was $50 million over budget and needed to cut a lot of money. He ended up trading the likes of Jose Barrios and Hyunjin Ryu. Nick, if you want to take us through your starting rotation first, I'll sort of help you since James has more experience. So James was able to go on his own, sort of rambling about his entire team on a good job. So I'll break you down into segments. Nick, tell us about your starting rotation, what you did there.
Yeah. All right. Well, first off, I would like to point out that I do think I have a pretty strong starting rotation. I mean, you've got Robbie Ray, who's sort of like at the head of it, who I believe he was the Cy Young winner last year.
Yep.
And he's got a ton of talent. And then, you know, as a Marlins fan, I had to take Trevor Rogers, who, well, he was runner-up National League Rookie of the Year last year. He's going to be a great addition in the long run for like the Marlins in general, but he's got a lot of promise. He's a nice young arm, and I think he can definitely do some damage. Marcus Strowman, he's like an older addition, but I guess he's in a way he's still very talented, and he's a vet, so he knows what he's doing, but he's also got like stats to back it up.
Yeah.
And then Manoah and Gray are two, I guess, young starters who can I think make an impact, and I think they could actually have a very strong like 2022-23 season if possible.
Sounds good. And you're also looking towards the future a little bit with both of those guys. Bullpen, you went pretty straightforward. You acquired Kirby Yates, who is injured, but that's again looking forward to 2023. Aaron Loop is a solid addition to the bullpen. Rich Hill's a nice guy. I think you've built together a pretty interesting bullpen. I think where we should go next with your team is the starting lineup and the big addition that people can see, Corey Seeger. And that's where we said you were definitely over budget to begin the offseason. You eventually cut it down. Tell us about why you decided to go after Corey Seeger.
I guess my vision for my infield was to have have a lot of depth there, where you have Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Seeger, and Biggio all just like on the diamond. That's a lot of talent. It's a lot of hitting potential, but they're all great fielders as well. And most of them are Blue Jays. I already had that cut out, but Corey Seager is insanely talented. And again, I'm looking forward to him having a great season. He's always fun to watch as well. And then a couple moves I had to make to cut down budget in the outfield. I had to get rid of, I think it was Gurriel Jr., right?
Yep, Gurriel Jr. and Randall Grichuk were both traded.
Yeah, well, Grichuk isn't the best, but
yeah.
I did get Austin Meadows back, who's a great corner outfielder, right? George Springer, he's always talented. He's always got a lot of pop in the bat, and he can always like make a difference. He's a great center fielder. And then I guess I could, put in Calhoun or Hernandez.
Yeah.
Depending what the team needs.
Sounds good. And as we will point out now, is that each guy had to remain relatively close to the team's actual budget. As you'll see, most guys remained relatively in the right direction. I know the highest number that was different from their actual team's budget was the LA Angels. So thank you, Nick, for giving all your points there. And we'll transition now to David. And as fans can see, you signed Max Scherzer, which is like the Angels' biggest concern always has been they don't have an ace. In real life, they signed Noah Syndergaard, who they're hoping can become that ace figure. But David, you said, I'm going to get the best pitcher out there and hopefully attempt to solve the Angels' issue. So tell us about Max Scherzer and why you think he should be there.
I got Max Scherzer. Ohtani can do a lot of things as an ace, but he's also a hitter. So I knew I had to get a guy who has been an ace for a long time in Scherzer to help out with the rotation. And I thought Scherzer can be that guy. Of course, with Ohtani being mostly a pitcher hitter in the lineup, I think Scherzer is that guy who can really bring in a lot of innings in case Ohtani has to DH one day or hit all day,
Yeah, makes sense.
And I also got in some other pitchers like in the minors right there, along with Scherzer, like Ward, who can give me innings. Shoemaker, Quintana, Peacock. They can come in from out of nowhere and try to give innings as best as they could. For the bullpen, I also tried to do the same thing and improve the bullpen with the guys that I think can really help them out, like Darren O'Day, a veteran. He might not throw the fastest, but he can easily make hitters off balance. Joely Rodriguez can help give innings as well.
Sounds good.
And I see a lot of guys in the minors who I believe have potential. So
I love, and then also just quickly, because I know you used to be doing those top 10 articles, and we love doing those. And of course, now you've transitioned to more of the birthday shout outs. If you had to say, is Max Scherzer the best starting pitcher in baseball? Because we did just record our top 10 starting pitchers episodes. So that is a little relevant for now. So just asking you the straight question, is it Garrett Cole, Is it Corbin Burns or is it Max Scherzer? We're going to exclude Jacob deGrom because he's obviously hurt. But in your opinion, Cole, Scherzer, Burns?
As of right now,
Yes. If you had to make the choice, if you game life on the line, you need a starting pitcher. Is it Burns, Scherzer, or Garrett Cole?
that's a great question. I mean, the problem is I currently don't know much about Corbin Burns.
Okay.
I mean, Cole did great in the regular season, but the problem is he did not do well enough with the Yankees last year, specifically in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
And for Scherzer, he's been pitching great for a longer time. He won a World Series, correct?
Correct.
So I guess I have to give it to the guy who won the World Series in Scherzer.
Sounds good. And then your offense, you made some moves there. You started off by acquiring Gary Sanchez. I know maybe your Yankee fandom played a little bit of a role in that move. You're also you made a nice contract swap, which was a unique deal at the time that I saw. You acquired Jason Hayward in exchange for Justin Upton. You also made some nice depth moves. You got Yoenis Cespedes, Josh Reddick. So if you want to talk about who do you think could have a better season next year, is it the bounce back from Gary Sanchez, or is it just this interesting outfield duo that you just got in Jason Hayward and Cole Calhoun?
Well, in my opinion, if Gary Sanchez was to have a bounce back year, I think he would have to do very well. But in my opinion, the two outfielders that I got in Calhoun and Hayward, they will definitely help out whatever they're on right now.
Yep.
I mean, I made the move for Sanchez earlier in the mock offseason just to get the power, just so he can start a few games. And Max Stassi is also really good. So either way, if Sanchez struggles, Stassi, who did well last year for the Angels, even if they didn't make the playoffs, of course, they have two catchers who can get potential. And for the outfielders and for the minor leaguers that I got around each hitter by position, they can come into clutch moments and help out this team.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, David, for that. We'll go now to Jonas and talk about the moves he made, including making a trade with Stapp earlier in the offseason to get DJ LeMahieu. You also acquired Carlos Rodon. Jonas, I trust you. Take it away. What do you want to say about your team?
Well, mainly, I do believe I made the White Sox better. Main moves, I would say, in the offseason, especially compared to the real White Sox, is that I did sign Carlos Rodon to basically what he signed for in real life. There wasn't much competition for him in this offseason. I got Wade Miley off of waivers to further fortify the rotation earlier. I think I've got a very, very solid rotation, which I believe is missing. Oh, Flaherty's hurt. Yeah. So is Lynn, by the way. But overall, when healthy, I think I have a really, really solid rotation with, Wade Miley being my 5 or 6, which I think is quite strong. Zach Davies is a spot starter. Just picked him up. But obviously the big deal is there. I traded for Jack Flaherty in a sort of 3-team deal. I got Flaherty in exchange for a bunch of prospects. I also traded away Dallas Keuchel's contract to the Mets for Dominic Smith in exchange, along with a couple of prospects. So I offloaded Keuchel's contract, which was about $20 million, I believe, and got him out of the rotation because he was frankly just dead weight at that point. He was not good at all. And I didn't want him starting any more games than he had to, which in this case is 0. Get him out of here now. But yeah, I think I solidified my infield generally with LeMahieu at second. Think that's a very solid infield. Abreu, LeMahieu, Anderson, and Moncada, very strong around the horn. I've got Sheets backing up. I've got Vaughn, outfielder. He's there somewhere.
I think you might have traded him a deal. I'm pretty sure, if I can double check this now, Andrew Vaughn was a part of your Jack Flaherty trade. Fun.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So in general, a very strong offseason from Jonas. I don't know if you have any finishing touches, any pitch of why you should be the winner.
Well, I think I did a really good job with the salary constraints I did have. Unlike the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Astros, I didn't really, well, the Yankees and Dodgers mostly, didn't have $240, $250 million to spend. I believe it was somewhere around 160, 170. And so I think in terms of execution and in terms of efficiency, in terms of really getting the most bang for my buck, in terms of what I have, I think that's where I shined. The White Sox aren't a huge market team. They didn't spend that much money. I can't go out and buy a Max Scherzer or a Carlos Correa or something like that. I don't have the money for that. But what I did do, I think, is leverage a decent farm system. Nothing great. I mean, I know Jack traded away a lot of prospects. Curran, I think, kept it relatively intact. Don't want to spoil too much. But I think for what I had, I did a really, really good job in maximizing my resources.
Sounds good. We will go to Jack next because Jack, if you can see on your screen right now, really revamped his starting rotation. You've got Garrett Cole there and you've got Luis Severino, and those 2 through 4 guys are brand new. Jack, take it away with what you did with your lots of money.
I won't go too depth into the analysis about like why I think some of these guys are so good, just because I just did that on our starting pitching episode. So you can go see that on your podcast app. But to put it short, Garrett Cole, I don't really see there's any argument. I think it's Jacob DeGrom, Corbin Burns, him, and then I think DeGrom's number 1, him and Burns. I think you could interchange, but he's clearly the best pitcher in the American League. He's a bare minimum top 3 starter in baseball. Nothing you can say about him. I traded for Aaron Nola, partially because I bought low on him because his ERA was over a 4.6 last year. But if you look at his FIP, it was over 3.3. So, that's partially because of his poor defense. So he's really, a lot better than people give him credit for. Plus Kevin Gaussman came off a really, really good year, which he was a perennial Cy Young candidate. Then plus I traded for Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. So I dumped lots of the familiar faces within this rotation. And I mean, I think there's not really much of an argument that, and those 3 guys right now, Gaussman, Nola, and Cole, you can make an argument, Nola and Cole on the back end, but all 3 of those guys are top 10 pitchers in the entire league. Plus Manaea is like top 30 potential, and Severino, the only question with him is health rather than ability. So if he can stay healthy, that is a really, really good rotation, and you're battling guys who all have ace potential every single day. Then the main addition to my offense was Jose Ramirez. I got him in a blockbuster deal that, also gave me Emmanuel Clase, which really strengthened one of the Yankees' already, strongest aspects with their bullpen, giving me Clase, Loizaga, Holmes, Chad Green. So that right there, combined with my rotation, is clearly the best pitching staff in all of baseball. Every single one of those guys is a top reliever. Clase has the potential to be the best reliever in all of baseball. He throws a 102-mile-an-hour cutter and resembles a former Yankee closer who solely relied on a cutter. And, plus breakouts from Loizaga and Holmes last year really makes that a really, really strong bullpen. Then, as I said in that deal, I also acquired Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez at Yankee Stadium, it plays better than he does in any other ballpark. Over a 245 OPS plus, an on-base percentage of 550, a slugging of 947, an OPS of 1.5. And this is despite the Yankees having a top 10 pitching staff by ERA since Ramirez's debut. So him between Judge and Stanton is the best 3-hitter combination in the entire league. Plus, I still have the Yankees midseason acquisition of Joey Gallo. So this team is clearly miles and miles better than the Yankee team last year that already won 92 games with several acquisitions, minor moves that really aren't as noteworthy. I did get Tucker Bonhart, and I plan to platoon him with a righty-lefty with Kyle Higashioka. That significantly upgrades the both offense and defense position at the catcher. Then also part of the Aaron Nola deal was I had to eat the salary of Didi Gregorius. I plan to use him as a bench bat just because he is a lefty and he had a really, really tough season last year. So it brings back a familiar face while, I managed to land a really good starter in Nola. Other than that, none of my moves were significantly big. Ahmed Rosario, I think, is going to fill in the hole at short. But my main difference between the IRL Yankees is I did keep Luke Voit. So I plan to have Gleyber Torres at second, Voit at first. Ramirez will play third, plus Rosario / Didi will play short. The outfield marginally seems the same, except I used my surplus of $2 million that I had remaining to re-rack Brett Gardner just to be a pure bench piece and a locker room presence. The Yankees will mainly roll out Gallo, Judge, and Stanton in the outfield with Aaron Hicks as a 4th outfield potential bat.
Sounds good. And of course, as you can see, we're scrolling through the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is on our website, sideretiredpod.com. So you can always go through and check that out to see if there's anything that you saw scroll through that you want to take a second look at, something like that. And that leads us to our last guy, who's Curran, who, as you can tell, had the budget greater than any other competitor. He had a $287 million, because what we did with the budget is that it was the real life total plus $10 million. Curran had $8 million left over. So pretty much he had a similar budget to the actual Dodgers. The big thing you're going to notice, he splurged and got Carlos Correa on a massive deal. So Curran, if you want to start with your rotation, your position players, give us the case, and it's probably going to be an easy one to make of why the Dodgers won the offseason.
Yeah, I'll preface everything I'm about to say by saying I completely recognize that the Dodgers are a fantastically run organization, and so that makes it easy to come in and play GM with them. I'll start with rotation just because Dylan has it on the screen here. I will preface this by saying the league commissioner did have some misleading comments about the availability or lack thereof of Trevor Bauer. So some of the moves I would have been able to make or not were hamstrung by that 30 some odd $1 million cloud over my head. But I think the final product is still incredibly strong. Walker Buehler's an ace. I think he's inarguably a top 10, maybe even a top 5 pitcher in baseball. Julio Urias just won 20 games. I know you all hate wins. That's completely fine and respectable, but I do think he's another budding ace. His slurve is filthy. Montas has several years of club control left. I'll go into the deal that brought him to the Dodgers later because there's another big bat I got alongside him, but I'm completely fine with him as a 3. And Gonsolin and Gray are both, they both compete. They eat innings, and I don't have a problem with them as the back end of my rotation. I think John Gray especially, no longer being hampered by Coors Field, it could be a big boon. And the Dodgers have a known track record of being able to really boost and get the best out of everything that their pitchers have. So I think that John Gray is a huge upside scale. And the other thing I'd like to point out is that a lot of my top prospects are pitchers. You have guys like Ryan Pepio, Bobby Miller, Landon Knack, Kendall Williams, all those guys I managed to keep. Even though I made a huge blockbuster that brought me both Montas and Olsen, I managed to keep my young prospects. So I still have the prospects for future success. I'll go to bullpen now. Pretty minor. I mean, Canley coming back, he was signed on a 2-year deal by the real life Dodgers. So I didn't even have to do anything for him, and I got him for free basically. And he's coming off injury. So it's basically a free pickup for me. And Kendall Graveman was the only incoming to replace a departing Kenley Jansen, which I think is an upgrade. Jansen had his moments with the Dodgers, but I think it's pretty safe to say that he is not the most reliable. Graveman had an outstanding dominant season last year, and Trinan is one of the filthiest relievers in all of baseball. I think that's one of the top combos in MLB. And Alex Vesia is a young up-and-comer. Phil Bickford's another one of those diamond in the rough pieces the Dodgers were able to revitalize his career. Brusdar Graterol can throw 102 without batting an eye. And AJ Minter was a nice pickup. I still have flashbacks to, I want to say it was game 5 or game 6 of the 2020, what was it, NLCS, where he was able to carve up the Dodgers for 3+ innings. So he's a nice lefty piece in there for a very, very strong bullpen. Excuse me. But the main piece that comes down to it is the most dominant lineup in all of baseball. Will Smith is a top catcher. He's only 27. He's going to be dominant for a lot longer in this league. This infield is absolutely ridiculous. You have Matt Olson at first. You have Muncy, who can play second or DH. You have Carlos Correa, who will be my shortstop for the future. Trey Turner can play outfield. He can play second. He is the best contact hitter in baseball. He won the batting title last year. He's going to do it again, and he might hit 30 home runs for the first time in his career. Justin Turner, he's aging. He's 37, but he's, again, one of the top 3 basemen in baseball. Edwin Rios is a nice bench piece. And the Correa signing was huge. What I would like to say, he's, as free agents come, he's on the younger side, only 27, 28. Turner's going to age out of the league in a few years, at which point Correa could slide over, and then Turner, assuming we get an extension with him, slides in at shortstop because he's probably going to stick at the position a little longer than Correa. So my splurging there benefits me now as well in the long term because we have a ready-made position for him as he ages out of shortstop. My outfield, I created flexibility. Betts and Bellinger are already entrenched in right and center. I re-signed Chris Taylor. Again, he's listed here as an outfielder. He can play all over the infield as well. He'll probably get the majority of his bets in left field because I did trade away AJ Pollock for some salary relief. Corey Dickerson and Steven Piscotty are some nice bench pieces, but 1 through 9, these guys can hit, and they hit for average. They hit for power. There's not a single easy out in that lineup, and it's one that will bring the Dodgers a title. I think And if you ask me why I win the offseason, I think if you send these teams to Vegas or some sports book, I'm clearly by far and away I have the best lineup, and I have the bullpen, and I have the pitching staff to compete for the title. And that's why I think I win the offseason.
Sounds good. So obviously we had pitches from all 7 of our GMs. Some of them are still with us right now. I think it's pretty clear there's an upper tier, and those are the teams that were able to spend a lot of money. And that was James with the Astros, Jack with the Yankees, and Curran with the Dodgers. So those 3 teams did end up being the final 3 teams that I was considering. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. Curran had the biggest budget, but he also by far has the best lineup in baseball. James has built up the best depth in baseball, as he didn't really allude to it, but his entire minor league team includes Kevin Pillar, Marwin Gonzalez, Billy Hamilton, Jake Marisnick, Eric Thames, D. Strange Gordon, a lot of guys that you've seen make all-star games before in the past, not to mention the fact that his middle infield is insane with Ketel Marte and Xander Bogaerts. And then you have Stapp, who changed up his starting rotation a ton. He added Aaron Nola, he added Sean Manaea, he added who's the third guy? Kevin Gausman. So all 3 teams took different approaches on how to win the offseason. And it's tough to weigh the 3. I think if I had to take a guess, and Curran, I love your team, but I think having the question marks of John Gray and Tony Gonsolin as your 4 and 5 did make me not have you win the offseason. I love your team, and I would not be shocked if they made the World Series, especially considering your stacked team. However, looking at the depth of it, if another Justin Turner injury does occur, if Chris Taylor gets hurt again, you're going to see someone like Steven Piscotty taking regular reps, and I'm not 100% sure about that. Great team, would give it an A off season. However, there are 2 other teams that were competing pretty hard and ended up getting just a slight bit better, in my opinion, at least. What do I do here? These 2 teams are very interesting because Jack went all out and his rotation is filled with guys that are getting a ton of money. And James has a great team, but he also inherited a great team. He had Garcia, he had Framber Valdez already in that rotation. The Sandy Alcantara trade, definitely probably a little bit of a steal. Sounds like Judge and Forge. We're not going to fire Dylan Jonas. Nice try. Nice, interesting thing. Bullpen might decide this thing. I might actually go Stapp wins. Wow. Going into this episode, gonna be honest, I had James winning, I had Curran 2, and I had Stapp 3. And then Stapp explained his starting rotation. And I kind of buying into the fact that Aaron Nola and Kevin Gausman could potentially be top 10 starting pitchers next year. So I am officially declaring that in his mock offseason, Jack Stappenbeck and the New York Yankees won the mock offseason despite not signing Carlos Correa and ending up with a Ahmed Rosario, Didi Gregorius combo at shortstop. Wow. All right, Stapp. Congrats.
I think Curran, I'm not gonna lie, I really wanted Correa before the Yankees passed on him. And considering I think this is a pretty nice redemption arc by myself on the past time I was on a YouTube exclusive episode. So I think I redeemed myself pretty nicely. I will say I do like, this doesn't really resemble the Yankees' actual offseason, but I do think their offseason, while it could have been so much better, is not is better than people give it credit for. But I think we had a lot of really good GMs, and looking forward to this next year for the 3rd annual.
It sounds good. We might even, who knows, next offseason, this might be an open thing for fans if you guys want to take a look and control the team that you guys are interested in controlling. Obviously, thank you so much to Jack, to James, to Jonas, to David, to Curran, to Nick, to Bannon, to everybody else that was a part of this mock-off season. We had a lot of fun doing it. Of course, this episode is going to be on YouTube exclusively as we're starting to put content on there. Of course, we're going to have a lot of great things as well on the regular podcast, such as our opening day special, our 100th episode special, top 10 starting pitchers, relief pitchers, NL East preview. Jack, I don't think I have anything else to talk about. James, Jack, we'll be back again in the morning. You guys can check out the actual podcast for the top 10 starting pitchers episode. That'll be there. And one last ride with the Oblivion as our intro song, as be on the lookout for opening day. This is, Jonas has taught me the phrase, under promise and over deliver. However, I have it in writing that we have a new song, so I can officially say now, Side Retired will have a podcast sponsor as well as a podcast intro song that we'll be looking forward to announcing Thursday morning. So with that, unless there's anything else, getting nodding heads, thank you guys for popping on. We'll see you next week. And with that, the side is retired.